Welcome to Hair Hero, the podcast where we dive deep into the minds of the best in the business to uncover what makes them tick and sometimes what makes them twitch. I'm your host, Ryan Whedon, founder of Masters of Balayage and creator of Masters Academy. Join me each week for impactful conversations with industry leaders, icons, influencers, and trendsetters. Get ready to be inspired, learn from the pros, and maybe even have a laugh or two. Because let's face it, if we can't have fun talking about hair, we're doing it wrong. Let's get started. Hey everybody, Ryan Whedon here. I am excited to be back today with this week's show. We've got a very exciting speaker here who wears many hats. She is a hairstylist, a salon owner, a coach. She's full on in education, and she's pregnant. Not that that should be a big starting point here, but I feel like it is a very common challenge as being a parent and having a business, having a salon, and I think it's very important to touch on that. It's just such a noble mission to be a parent, and being one myself, and being the male side of it, it's a lot easier than being the female side of it. I'm just really proud of anybody that is also an entrepreneur like she is. Her name is Laura Elizabeth, and I'm so excited to talk to her. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm like cheesing over here. I'm trying not to laugh and like overpower your intro.
You can laugh at me as much as you want. I laugh at myself all the time.
Oh my gosh. Becoming a parent is a journey in itself. I keep telling my husband that I need to write a book about all the truths that no one warned me about. Just going through the process of having a person growing inside of you. It's the most miraculous yet strangest experience I've ever been through, let alone operating multiple businesses at the same time and trying to keep your sanity. So thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thanks for carving out the time. Now, I didn't even ask you, is this your first one?
This is my first one. Yeah. So I have two stepchildren that are older. Okay. And this will be our first child and my first child together. So it's a whole new world.
It really is. So you haven't had to change diapers or anything like that yet, or
when I babysat at 12 years old, I did, but
okay.
Yeah, not full time experience just yet.
Yeah, my wife and I, we've got two, almost 4-year-old and almost 2-year-old, and we haven't slept in about 4 years.
Oh my god!
And it's just
Thank you for that reminder. So here's what we got. One of the first things we invested in is the snoo. Have you heard of the snoo?
We had the snoo. Yes.
Okay.
It's
amazing.
I'm
excited to see if it really works. It does work.
It does work. It does work. And it's been, it was a lifesaver for our first one, especially. Just make sure that you maybe set it on a manual setting, because the way it works, I'm sure you looked into this, is probably why you're getting it, is that it rocks your baby back to sleep when they start to wake up and they're crying, they're moving around. It kind of secures them, kind of like a straitjacket, which is almost like, what do you call those things when you make them really tight?
Swaddle.
A swaddle. Swaddle.
Yeah.
I was never good at swaddling, but it's like a swaddle where you want to keep their arms close to their body. It just makes them feel more secure. So this thing, you lock them into place, the snoo, and then you put it on the setting where it's if they wake up and they're crying, and it rocks them back to sleep. And if they get more frantic, it rocks them a little harder. That hard setting will literally almost throw them outside of the snoo. So we were like, oh my gosh, she's flying all over the place. We had to actually we're like, okay, we're not going to put it on that kind of a AI kind of a setting anymore. So just go easy into it, because it starts to really swing them fast.
I heard that the lady, so we bought a second hand, and the lady warned us. She's like, I was in the shower, my baby was crying, we had him in the snoo, and it was working, and he wouldn't stop crying because it continues to soothe and tries to put your baby back to sleep. She goes, when I got out of the shower and I went to go find my baby, it looks like the whole thing was going to take off and go fly across the room.
Yeah, exactly. It's scary. It's scary. You see this little head just flying all around. You're like, oh great, I'm already hurting my child, and it's only been a few weeks.
God.
But it's a great thing. Another thing that to let you know too, it is Wi-Fi based. So if you bring it with you, which we travel to my wife's parents' house a lot, and we would take it up there, and they don't have very good Wi-Fi in the house, and especially in the lower floors. So we were trying to hook up the snoo. It was time to go to bed. We're trying to put all this together, and we were just freaking out because we can't get the snoo to work. There are some manual settings and things. So if you don't have the Wi-Fi, that you have to just learn the manual settings. But we're trying to find out what the settings are on the Wi-Fi, and we couldn't get the Wi-Fi, and it was just
gosh.
We just relied too much on the tech.
Sleep, baby. I know.
Sleep,
I'm
go to
hoping
sleep.
that just go to bed. Yeah, that's the one thing that I've been getting as much sleep as I can before
Mhm.
baby comes, especially with everything going on,
Mhm.
because I'm very well aware of what's to come. I'm
Yeah,
prepared.
it's
39 years being in the salon, you hear a
uh,
lot of advice from clients
uh,
constantly about children and parenthood and sleepless nights. And I'm doing my
yeah,
best to get myself amped up.
yeah. You'll be fine. I mean, you have no choice. You're in it. It's kind of like are you ready to be a parent? The question is, no, you're never ready. Like you're
Never
never
ready.
ready because you never know what's going to happen. It's always an unknown.
You know what? It's interesting you say that because I've gotten a question a lot being older. As I just
Yeah.
shared, I'm 39 and it's my first. I got the question recently and someone said, "Are you happy that you waited?" And personally, I can speak for myself. I actually, like, because I've done so much within the industry and gave myself that space and time to grow and expand and do
Mhm.
that, like, you're never ready. Like, I'm never ready. I'm not ready right now. But at the same time, like, I'm glad I had that space and time to do the things that I wanted to do. So now I can focus on a totally different chapter within my life.
Mhm.
And it was really rewarding to like go through those processes of all of the achievements that I've made and now being able to like do this in a position financially and emotionally
Mhm.
and even um, feeling like somewhat maturity prepared for
Yeah.
parenthood at an older age. So, and everyone's path's going to be different. So that was just my path. And it feels like the right time for the most part.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question that you answered too, because being older and having your life more in line, I would say, more focused as opposed to being a 20 something and having a kid. And there's nothing absolutely wrong with that. But there's a lot to figure out as
Yeah.
you get older. And if you get to a point where you actually have that more financial stability in your life, in your business, in your family, then yeah, it does make it easier. There's less big things to worry about. It's not worried so much about like, oh my gosh, I need to make enough money to feed my baby. It's more about, can I buy a snoo?
Right. Those are not
Which is
cheap, even
great. They're not
secondhand.
cheap. No, they're not cheap. So it is really nice to have that kind of balance ahead of time. I mean, if you can, but I think
Yeah.
we were talking about how you're never ready really to be a parent. Same thing goes, you own a salon. It's like the same thing could be said for that. Are you ever really ready to own a salon? Not really, but you got to
Right.
take those steps anyway. If you want to own a salon, you just got to take the plunge at some point. Are you ever ready to launch a course? Not ready, but you got to start somewhere and figure it out along the way, but just have that confidence and courage that you will.
Yes, it's so true. I mean, I just had a call with one of my social media strategists, and we were discussing like the next steps for what's moving forward in the business. And we were going back and forth on like the whole salon ownership topic. I'm very, in my opinion, newer into that industry, into that realm of
Mhm.
wearing that hat. It's about a year and a half to 2 years new. I've stepped out from being commissioned into independent and my intention was to open a salon. Then I was like, nope, I don't want this. This feels like
Mhm.
too much work. There's too much responsibility. I don't even know what my business looks like. But through just the evolution and trusting the process, like taking that first step, and then magically you're given the tools that you need to be successful, or even just the tools to like follow a different path. Like, as long as the best piece of advice I think I've been given, and I remind myself of this, is you don't have to know the path that you're taking, but as long as you have an idea of where you're going, you have to just kind of release that control up to the universe, up to your higher
Mhm.
powers, up to whomever you choose to look to for that guidance, and trust that like you'll be given what you need to go to where you're supposed to be along the way. And so salon ownership has really fallen into my lap, and honestly becoming a parent, a newer parent very soon.
Mhm.
That has literally collapsed time down, and it has forced me to delegate, offload, stop micromanaging people, bring people into my team that I can trust and grow, so I can take a step back from the business and not be the center focus of my business, and empower other people to grow their business
Mhm.
with what I've created. Like, the systems work, and it's just letting go of that
Mhm.
control to a degree,
Right.
so people can step into their power as well too. So like, I don't think that I really plan on the salon ownership the way that I've created it. It's what I call like a micro salon, because we're building out of a salon suite environment, but it's growing into a large team rather quickly, and it's wild, it's different, it's unconventional, but it's working. And I have to, again, trust the process. Like it's like, is it Tomb Raider is when they're like, or Indiana Jones, is that the one where he's like about to take the step and this giant boulder is like coming towards him and he has to trust that that step's going to magically appear before he like takes that step into what? Like he would have fallen if the step didn't appear. So I kind of feel like that.
Coming from an Indiana Jones lover of the movies, you just combined two of those together. What is Indiana Jones?
I did.
the first one where he's being chased by the boulder, running, trying to go through these little caves and whatnot to get out. And then the other one where he's like, where he's going toward it's on the Holy Grail journey. And you're right. He has to trust like some, whatever that phrase that he was repeating, and just take a step and he closed his eyes and just hope that a step would just magically appear as he looked down, into an infinity of a fall.
Yeah. and that's kind of how it feels sometimes. Life, business, parenthood. Am I ready? Like you will be given the exact support you need. It may not look the way you think it's going to look though.
Mm-hmm. Well, you said something that caught my attention, which was about knowing where you're going and how important that is. You might not know how you're going to get there, but you have to kind of let go of control and trust that you're going to find a way there, to your higher power, your spirits, whatever is going to help give you that belief and courage to get you there. But having that like life GPS, you know where you want to go. It might not be exactly where you want it, but you kind of know what you want your life to feel like, or what kind of a job you want to have, or what kind of freedom you want in your life. And that's kind of like serves as your GPS. It's like we don't just get in the car and just drive. I mean, unless you're really pissed off and you need to like just work through some stuff.
But most of the time,
just drive around and see what happens, right? But most of the time, you have a destination in mind. Like today would be a perfect example of that. I got in the car and I was first thing on the way to work is I take my kids to school. So I got in the car. We're on our way to school. Basically the GPS was, I know how to get there, so I didn't actually need to plug it in, but I know where I'm going. I get in the car and I go, and suddenly there's traffic, there's road closures, and I'm like, okay, I can't go that way. I can't go into my normal route. So now I got to back up, I got to do a U-turn, and I got to find a different way to get there. Of course, I still got there, right? Because I knew where I was going. It might have taken a little longer. It might have been a complete 180 detour until I got back on course, but I think that's a totally great metaphor for life.
Yes. I mean, I've seen these Instagram posts where it's like what you think your life looks like. And it's like from dot to dot, straight line. And what it really is like a bunch of backtracking squiggles, ups and downs.
Right.
And that's truly what it has been. I mean, as much as we try and predict what our future is supposed to look like, I think like the best thing I've done is let go of the control and just be like, here's where I'm wanting to be. Here's my intention behind it. But like, let's see where life takes me. And it has been the best, like, honestly, the last 2 years have been like the most expansive for me in regards to that. It's taught me a lot. And again, about releasing that control and like being okay with the outcome. And it's usually always better than what I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you have that belief too. You've built that courage inside yourself to trust that I'm going to find a way there. And if I get to a completely different destination, it was probably meant to be.
Balayage. It doesn't matter how you pronounce it. Your clients just want to know that you're good at it because they're paying a lot of money for your service. Sure, you can take a class here and there, search on YouTube, learn a hack here and there on Instagram, but it's never going to be enough because to excel at balayage, you need structured learning with experts that have been where you are and can show you how to reach your goals. Hi, I'm Ryan Whedon, founder of Masters of Balayage and one of the first balayage experts to bring modern balayage to millions. And right now, Masters Academy, the #1 online trainer for balayage artists, is now offering lifetime memberships. That's right, no more monthly payments, no more overdrafts, just a one-time payment and you can get over 100 hours of balayage and blonding tutorials on demand to watch and rewatch on your time. Our new Masters Academy lifetime membership also includes our 3 world-famous certification programs, the Balayage Masters program, the Blonde Masters program, and the Extensions Masters program. Not only do you get to own all 3 of these now, you also get Master Certified. So if you're stuck, lacking that balayage confidence, or just need an awesome excuse to raise your prices? Masters Academy is the answer. And right now, you can save $100 off any lifetime membership. Just go to www.mobmastersacademy.com and use code MYLIFE at checkout to redeem your $100 off promotion. I'm gonna say it again, so go grab a pen and write this down. Go to www.mobmastersacademy.com and use code MYLIFE and redeem your promotion now.
Absolutely. I mean, I talk a lot about failure, and that failure is just an illusion of our own emotions, and it's our own shortcomings of what our expectations are. Like that's truly what failure is. Like I've stood up on stage. I remember one time, this is years ago, actually. I was educating with a hair company, and they said, okay, well, we're going to do a presentation on stage. Are you comfortable going up and talking about this? I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. Like I didn't think anything of it. They didn't prepare me for how many people were going to be there or what the topic was. I just knew it had to do with their brand, which is hair extensions. So we get up on stage, and I'm realizing this is a much bigger deal than I was expecting it to be. So there's these like really high performing salon owners who come from all over the country, and they're there to learn and hear about this upcoming technology that we created within the company. And there are a couple educators behind me, like just doing their hair thing. And I'm asked to speak about this for 45 minutes, and nobody gave me any dialogue or prepared me to like have any, like I was very, very underprepared for this. What I perceived to be a huge failure, because I remember getting off that stage and feeling mad, frustrated, really upset with the gentleman that put me up there unprepared. One, I learned that if I were to go up there again, I would at least have some outline or script pre-done in the future if that were ever to be the case, which hopefully that wouldn't be the case. But I would learn how to actually speak better on the fly. And two, as much as I felt like I failed, it was really just the fact that I was embarrassed I wasn't prepared. It was because I didn't feel supported. And I had to just take that as a huge learning lesson for if I were to be put in front of somebody or into a big group last minute, like I would have better tools in my tool belt. So in that moment, the failure was huge and it felt really real, and I was very embarrassed. But hindsight 2020, I'm like, you know what? That could have been the best thing that I needed to now know like how to better present and how to do something on the fly and not always be over prepared and organized. And as an educator, I'm sure you can relate like that. It was hard to feel like, wow, I really sucked at that. But again, it's taking those lessons and it's learning from that. And it's not putting your identity like, oh, Laura's the one that went up on stage and flopped. No, like Laura did her best, and she can always learn and grow from that and take tools from that for next time around.
Right. And people like us, we look at ourselves as works in progress. So even if it didn't feel perfect, we learn something from it. And if we apply to the next time we're in a situation like that from what we learned, then yes, then it's not really a failure because we never gave up. I feel like failing, it's only a failure if you actually give up and stop trying, if you just quit, but if you never quit, you never fail.
And if you never try, you're already setting yourself up to fail because you didn't give yourself an opportunity to do it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
A lot of different ways to look at that F word.
There are. It's something that a lot of stylists that I talked with, like they're afraid of failing in lots of different ways. And, if it's the one thing, like learn to fail more. Like I was at, someone recently shared, they said that I strive to fail. I think they said 80% of the time. And I'm like, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard, but please enlighten me. And his point was just that, like, you don't know until you put your feet in, get your feet on the ground, get into it, and you're exploring these options. Like, I really don't believe that failure truly exists. And it really is just about like learning and rebounding and how fast you get back up and how fast can you stop judging yourself and building self-trust. Like building self-trust allows that confidence to come in, which allows you to start and do more things with less fear. Essentially, like you always will have fear present, but it's like how you navigate through that fear is the difference factor between that.
Right. And I think those that don't fail, it's because they're not taking any risks. And those that take a lot of risks, you're probably going to fail a lot more. But it's like failing forward, right? Was what they say. You fail better each time. You get better and better and better. until finally it all just clicks and suddenly all those failures become a huge success. And from that point on, you fail less and less because you've learned what not to do so many times that when you finally get to a certain point, it's like that's why people that are successful continue to be successful. You don't really see their failures anymore. It might be a little step back here and there, but it's like once you've learned what not to do and learned and focus on what to do, it just you start to have that exponential growth.
Absolutely. Well, and successful people still fail. And I think they even talk about it if they're good at it. They talk about it more. And it really helps, like it humanizes them. It allows you to be like, oh, I see myself in that person. I recently saw Ed Milet speak on stage live, like literally like the best public speaker I've seen to date. It was like a masterclass in public speaking. And he had so many incredible lessons through failures and through life lessons and just like the tenacity and how he picks himself back up. And he really, it's resiliency, I think, is what you create throughout failing that allows you to continue to chase and achieve the success.
He seems like a machine, just somebody that is just so well conditioned with his mind that, right, you're saying his resilience, something happens, he can probably flip a switch almost automatically. Back on track.
And you know what's interesting? I was sitting in the back room. So I because I'm pregnant, I was having issues sitting in this chair that I was sitting in. And we happened to know the people organizing the event. I got scooped up really quickly, not physically, but they're like, come with me. We'll sit you somewhere more comfortable. So I'm in the VIP lounge and Ed Milet walks in. And I'm not a starstruck person, but it was really interesting to see even just his integrity of how he navigated the entire room, because they had all the speakers in that one room. It wasn't just a green room. And he's just a very humble, like you could tell he craves and he does, like he really puts a lot of value into connection with people. So what you see on stage, what you read in the books, what you see on his podcast, for instance, like that's who he is in and out. So cool. It was very cool to witness and see that. Yeah.
That's how I want to be. And I'm sure that's how you want to be. You want to be the same person in public that you are in private, right?
Well, and you are, meeting you a few years ago, we just talked about this before the pandemic happened. You are very genuine, kind, giving, like a very giving educator, which I'm so grateful that we had a chance to connect, because I think what you do here with your platform and how you use that influence changes so much of the industry itself. I'm sure you can agree. I would assume you would agree, is that the industry educators have changed, thankfully, in the last 15, 20 years for how it used to be. And it's so much more about connection and what you give versus what you get.
Yeah, I feel like it used to be a lot of the educators that I was in the industry looking at, and even in different industries, they would stand higher than you. They wouldn't talk, they would talk down to you. They wouldn't want you to be on the same level. They would put themselves in a kind of a class of their own, where really who deserves that and what makes you better than me? You might be a little bit further along in our journey, but holding back secrets, holding back what made you successful is not going to help us, and it's not going to help them get any further in their life. The more open we are, the more we share what we know to help others grow. That's what impacts people and the world in a very positive way. And we got to continue doing that.
Absolutely.
And I love the shift too. I'm seeing it with everybody, and a lot of people in this industry. I mean, you still have your stars, the ones that don't talk to anybody, and they're only working with celebrities, and they'll talk about you the second you're out of the room. But I mean, that's with any industry.
That's going to be
fine. But I feel like there's more people that are being honest. Like, I'm suffering from anxiety. I'm having troubles with this. I was bankrupt here. My life's not perfect. I don't filter my life all the time to make it look like I have my shit together.
Yeah. That's the beauty about podcasting and social media. Like you share that, it humanizes you with your people that you're wanting to influence. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. I feel like we want that connection these days, like you're saying with Ed Milet. We want that relatability, and that's what makes us all feel like we can do more and be better.
Yeah.
I see what you're doing. I mean, you're wearing a lot of hats. What with everything going on in your life, what does a typical day look like for you? A typical week? Does it change all the time, or do you have to stay pretty structured? I mean, like myself, I wear a lot of hats too, and my life is chaos. I'm just still trying to figure it all out, but we're growing, and it's just, Monday, I pretty much have a panic attack every single Monday morning. Just like get in there, I'm excited to work, but I'm like, okay,
There's
meeting,
so much
meeting,
to do.
projects. Okay, what's next? What can we actually like realistically get done? And I
It's
still
organized
overplan.
chaos. It's organized chaos. That's all I can say. Like people, I hear this a lot, excuse me, that you do too much or you're doing too much or you have a lot on your plate. How do you do it? And I believe it's a choice. It's a responsibility I've chosen to take on. But I also know like I love to keep busy and I'm not someone that just sits still even while I'm like growing a child. Like I've chosen to continue to take on all these roles. So a week is definitely going to look it's organized, but this like I have dyslexia and I have ADD. So with those two things that feel very challenging, organization is not my strong suit. So I've hired a team. This last year, I was really intentional about positioning people who can help keep me on track, keep me organized, help with the different tasks that I have in the different areas that I need to be in. So offloading and giving other people responsibility so I can stay in my zone of genius have been a huge change within my business. And it was scary to invest in someone else to help me grow my business because it didn't feel possible at the time, where I was like, this is reckless use of my money. But it honestly has been the best thing that I could do to help grow me as an educator, grow me as a salon owner and a leader. So I don't feel like I'm dropping the ball constantly, because the last thing I want to do is like forget an appointment or not follow through with my word or tell my team I'm going to do something. And then I like, oh, Laura forgot again, because that's very common in my life to do that. But yeah, I do. So like Mondays are typically coaching days. Or I'll do podcasts and such on Mondays. So I really focus my time here in my office. And then Tuesday through Fridays, I'm in the salon. So I'm like very active in my business. I have a full clientele that I still serve and now growing a team too. So goal is when I get back from maternity leave is to offload some clients and allow myself to truly lead and do part-time hair. And then I try my best to give myself Saturdays off. It doesn't always happen, but we do education days with assistants on Saturdays. And then Sundays are like admin days. Let's get your stuff together so you're prepared for your Monday. So it's busy, but I personally, like I thrive off that. That's something that I know most people would say that's too much. But I've worked that way for a long time. My husband also owns multiple businesses. So we both support each other in different seasons throughout that, like sprinting or resting or just maintaining our business while the other person's doing something. So he's actually about to launch a live event local here in Dallas within his industry. He's within the fitness industry. So now it's like my space and time to like maintain my business while he's doing a big sprint within his business too. So it does help to have that support. I couldn't do it without my team and my husband. And as well, having a really good salon team to fall back on if I need them to step up and take on clients, if I need to take off a half day or such. So it's a lot, but I love it. I wouldn't have it another way. So throw a baby into the mix and we'll just keep adding to this responsibility pile.
Well, I mean, once the baby's maybe 8 months to a year old, you can maybe start getting tasking some things to the baby, get them working early so they can build that momentum for to take over the business for you, when they're like 2, 3.
Yeah, like they can start
grooming them early.
Yeah, folding my towels.
Yeah, exactly. So you said that you have ADD and dyslexia.
Yeah, I do. I don't talk about it too openly, but I do.
Yeah. Well, I'm just we're very open here, and I'm very open here about I battle anxiety and depression and other things, but nothing that's too. I don't know what to say. I don't want to say anything inappropriately, but yeah, we all have our inner battles, and sometimes it's a kind of an everyday life focus where some days are great, some days are shit. And I'm sure your journey hasn't been easy with ADD and dyslexia. Now I'm just curious, like, what does that look like as far as dyslexia? Does that mean I don't want to sound like I'm not intelligent, but like you can't, words get mixed up and jumbled, and if you're reading something, it's hard to stay focused on reading. Like, what does dyslexia look like in your life?
So the dyslexia for me it showed up in high school. Funny story. I took something at that time I lived in Indianapolis, and they have their testing state testing, where if you don't rank in the state testing to their expectations, you have to take extra classes. And I failed math, and my mom didn't tell me. She's like, "Oh, you just need a little more support in math. So when you go into high school, you're going to take an extra math class." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I thought nothing of it. So I show up in this math class, and it's like remedial math. Like, I learned really quickly on day one that this was for people who failed and needed extra support to get through their testing on the math. And I was like, "Mom, why didn't you tell me I failed?" She's like, "Oh, I didn't want you to feel bad for not being smart." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I don't think I'm not smart. I just have I have a very hard time with numbers," which is funny because colorists, like, all we do is focus on numbers and measurements and scaling. And even ordering color is overwhelming for me. So I had to like teach myself tools and techniques of how to learn math and how to read more comprehensively, because I would get words. Numbers were worse than words, but I was like not at a higher reading level I was not at the reading level I should have been at. Let's put it that way.
Sure.
So I really, even as an adult, like, I'm intentional about reading. I'm not the world's fastest reader. I don't always comprehend and retain everything, but I practice as much as I can through writing as well too. I love writing, even though my husband has to correct a lot of my grammar. So I've had to teach myself different ways of learning. And I think that when it comes down to having dyslexia in my life, like, to me, it just means I have to learn a different way. And I've had to teach myself what that way is. It's very much like I need to see it, hear it, tangibly touch it, and then I can connect all those dots together, and then I retain the knowledge. So it's felt harder. School was really hard. I almost didn't graduate high school. I had a plan of getting my GPA and just going to hair school, and my mom was like, "Yeah, if you do that, we're not going to support you." Like, I intentionally failed my junior year so I could drop out, get my GED, and go do hair. So Mom and Dad said no to that. And I had to my senior year, I graduated high school and I had 1 credit left to finish. And so after I graduated, they didn't give me my diploma. I went through commencement ceremony. I had to go back as like a graduated senior and take 1 more credit of summer school to actually get my diploma. Like, I fought tooth and nail really hard to get through high school. But I knew for me, like, hair was something that I wanted to do since I was 7. And it's something that I don't know why 7, but I remember I had a journal, and in my journal, it said like, "How old are you? What do you want to be when you grow up?" And it was a singer or a hairdresser. And my mom's like, "You can't sing." So I said, "Okay, I'll be a hairdresser."
Let's try the hair first. Work on your singing, and maybe that'll be the plan B. If
You're a little tone deaf. Let's not do that. So, with that, like, hair, I just poured myself into hair because that to me came easy. It was artistic. It was fun. I could figure out the numbers. I could figure out my own way of learning how to do it. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but I never let it stop me. It made it harder because our structured school systems are taught one way. That's a whole other podcast conversation.
Talk about
I won't go down, but they're taught one way, and you just have to kind of get crafty. And again, that tenacity and the resiliency to get through it.
I'm sure you had a lot of support there, because maybe from family or friends or teachers, because you had this challenge that you found out about. You didn't really know you had a challenge until you realized you were in a remedial class. But then you realized that in order to overcome this challenge, you had to find a new way of learning. Whereas you didn't decide just to quit and give up. You said, "I'm going to figure out a way to do it." Was that something that came from inside of you, like this hero inside that's going to that turned it around? Or I feel like it's a learned response to know that we to build that resilience, right? Was there somebody in your life maybe that was extra supportive that says, no matter what you're facing, ADHD, dyslexia, I'm going to push you. You have what's inside of you already. You have the tools to overcome any challenge in your life. Do you have somebody that like comes to your mind? Whether it could be like really in my leg.
I know, right? I don't think I was that wise back then to like listen.
At 7 years old, to take you back. Who was it? Was it Big Bird or was it Mickey Mouse?
Right. Oh my gosh. The Simpsons. No, I'm kidding. I was a big Simpsons kid growing up, but they did not teach me good stuff.
Right.
I was with my mom. I mean, she definitely, I would say I wasn't diagnosed till later in life. So my mom, even through school, they were just like, "Oh, Laura just has challenges learning." They still didn't know why. But she was an advocate in regards to like, we're going to help you any way that we can, even though they didn't know how. And a lot of it did come from within, of just figuring it out. Like everything is figure outable. Like you can figure out those things. And for me to know that this is what I had to do to get to the next step, to graduate or get to the next level of education, I had to at least get through that period of my life. I think it just taught self-resilience, honestly, because I was a tough kiddo. Like I fought my parents tooth and nail. I definitely like walked the beat of my own drum. I did what I wanted to do. So I would just say I kind of naturally just was born with that tenacity at a young age. And if you talk to my parents, they'll have lots of stories to share with you about how frustrating I was as a kid.
I think my daughter's going to be like that. she's going to go in that very, she's very opinionated, and I feel like she's already walking, beating to the walking, dancing to the sound of her own drum, or whatever that phrase is. I'm so terrible at remembering phrases.
No, it's beautiful. It's, you know what? I'm sure at this age it's really challenging. Is she your 4-year-old?
She's a 4-year-old. Yeah. Almost 4-year-old.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, she's 4 going on 21.
Basically. Well, I'd say like mid-teens. Yeah. Mid-teens.
Yeah. They
slamming
have
doors already, just giving her space. She's working it out. I'm going to wear this dress today. That's it. Okay. I told you so, Daddy. I told you so. This is what I'm going to do. I've told you so. Yeah.
Pick and choose your battles.
Now, one other thing I want to touch on real quickly is ADHD. I feel like there's a stigma to it, and I feel like maybe a lot of it could be undiagnosed, and it's stigma is that it's like it's vibrant in the creative community, but it's also, people think like if you have ADHD, you can't focus on anything. Like you get distracted like squirrel, like you're quickly distracted. Right. Yet we've been here for over 30 minutes and like you're totally focused and connected and in tune. What does that look like in your life?
So I've never taken medication for it. I've definitely been one who has, again, self-taught to kind of work my way through it to the best of my ability. It has been a struggle in regards to like focusing on like projects. And that's like projects when it comes to anything like sitting down and writing out a curriculum for like education that I do, to trying to like get through a book to read. Like even outside of high school, it has continuously showed up in ways where it pulls me away from what I'm supposed to be working on. So procrastination is like a big crutch that I utilize or have utilized, because I'm like, oh, I just don't have time, or it's not fun because it doesn't feel fulfilling. I found that hair though, like having a project with hair for 2 hours, 2.5 hours was really fulfilling because there was a start, middle, and an end. And so I found that if I can take that type of tool of start, middle, and end with hair and put it into other things within my business, like stepping into leadership and ownership and education, that I can replicate that feeling where I feel like that I have somewhere that I'm going and it's rewarding. So I can't say I've been diagnosed heavily with like, you need medication, and if you don't have it, you can't perform. But it's definitely like I get very distracted very easily, and I don't like sitting for long periods of time. And when things engage me, I'm fully engaged. And when things feel unfulfilling, I think that's when I'm like, oh, what else is going on? Like social media has been honestly, social media is a hard thing, because I find naturally I'm like, oh, what are people doing when I'm like, I have a project to work on or I have something to be doing. It's just checks and balances, figuring out how to self-manage and self-regulate, and not allowing the distractions to pull you away. It's like, to me, I almost see it as like the enemy. Like the enemy wants to kind of pull you away and get you away from your purpose.
Sure.
So it's like, how do I redirect myself back to the purpose?
I feel like that so much. I feel like I have it at some degree myself too, because it's just, I'm always all over the place, and I forget to eat. I forget to do important things throughout the day, throughout the week. I have people that constantly remind me, did you do this? No. And I start a project, and then I've got 45 tabs open on my computer, and then I see something else and I'll go there. But I think I like the way that you kind of broke it down on how you work through it. And I think I do the same thing myself. I'm not diagnosed, and probably pissing off people that have it severely, like, you don't have ADHD. But where you kind of create little milestones in the way where if it's a hair appointment, then it's like, okay, I have the beginning, the middle, and the end. If it's maybe a bigger project, maybe break it down into smaller steps where you can see an end not too far away. And if it's important to you, I think that also makes it easier to focus on, maybe even become hyper-focused on it, which I do on a lot of things. I'm sure you do as well. So I
Oh,
like
yeah.
the idea of breaking these big, maybe stressful projects into smaller parts to get it done and probably get it done faster.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I think a lot of us creatives, you said it earlier, a lot of us are undiagnosed with it. I was diagnosed like at a really young age. I went through quite some time of like clinical depression. And when I was going through my intake at this point, I had to actually, these are really things I don't talk about a whole lot.
Yeah.
So when I was probably like, I think I was 16, I was put inpatient for depression. And while that inpatient process was going on, they were like, and we think she has ADD too. And I was just like, of course I do. Like we just kind of dismissed it because there was so much happening at once throughout that period of time. I don't think my parents put a lot of weight into it, but there was definitely like a lot of us struggle with it. And I think that's what makes us so brilliant in so many different ways, because our brains operate not like your average Joe. Like we are supposed to think creatively and bigger and different and think fast, right? I think people who have the ADD stigma is like, we just think our brain thinks faster than we can keep up with. So that's why we have these ideas that just download so quickly. And it's like the pivot. It's like, instead of pivoting every idea, it's like, how can you stay in your zone of genius to finish the purposeful task that you're working on?
Right. One thing that I do, which helps out a lot, is every single day that I feel completely overwhelmed, which is almost every single day. and it's like I start the day by breaking down everything that's on my mind and it make the list of however long it takes me project. If I have 25 projects, and it's no joke, sometimes it's a lot. There's a lot of projects.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
What is the most important thing that has to get done right now? Let's not worry about something that it might be fun, but it's not urgent. So it's kind of like that Stephen Covey 4 quadrant. Like what's important and urgent, and start in that box, right? And that way I can start to work through and schedule my priorities. And I feel like that works really well. And then sometimes those other projects, they never get done, even 10, 15 years later. And then you realize, I didn't really want to do that anyway.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. And sometimes people, like when I'm working on something that I feel like I want to procrastinate, it's usually just because it doesn't feel fulfilling or fun. It's necessity though. And I talk about this a lot within like the coaching that I do, especially when hairstylists are wanting to get like in their business. They procrastinate the hard stuff because it's not fulfilling and fun. Like learning your numbers is not always fulfilling and fun because it's a truth teller. Right. But when you get dialed in on it and you do the hard stuff and you push through that, like one, you always gain knowledge from that. 2, you get it off your plate, which feels really good when you're done. I'm finally done with that big task. And it's not everything that you do in business is always sexy and fun. It's not, but it's necessity to learn. And it empowers you so much to like, once you at least know how to do it once. And if you don't want to do it again, you can offload it, like AKA hire a bookkeeper next time.
Yeah.
Right. Your bookkeeping.
Very helpful.
So you can do things that you really do like to do. But yeah, it's being an entrepreneur and being a hairpreneur at that it's not always sexy and fun, but it's definitely, it's empowering to empower yourself with the knowledge. So you do know what you're talking about. You do know how to make decisions around your business. And you know how to grow it.
Right. Hang on. My headphones are like falling off my head here. I must have put in too much hair gel today. No, I don't really use hair gel.
Hair does look great though.
Thank you. The mic, the headphones actually help to keep it up, so it's higher.
I see.
Higher to God.
I see.
Is that what they say? What do they say in Texas? Higher the hair, closer to God, or something.
Yep, they do say that here.
You mentioned in our intake form here that you went through a huge life change 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you want to chat on that? I was just gonna wrap it up, and I'm like, ooh, this sounds good.
It's good. I did. For me, it was huge. And I think for those of you who have been through something like this can relate. It was a divorce, which yes, divorces happen all the time. They happen every day. But I will say for me at that point in my life, I had moved to Texas from Indianapolis. So I was in the Midwest, moved to Texas, got married. 2 years later, we're going through a divorce. And that felt to me like it was life-changing because not only was myself and my ex, who was then my best friend, like having to like separate and like uncouple each other. Then we were having to really establish our own identities. And then now I'm in Texas with no family, trying to figure out who I am and how I got here and take responsibility for my part of how this whole thing fell apart. And it put me into this place of really looking at myself hard in the mirror And it was as much as what I did, this was interesting. The outside Laura was like, achieve, 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 like make yourself look like you got your shit together.
Yeah.
So I started doing hair competitions and I started educating even more and I started traveling and everything looked great on paper. But what was happening on the inside is I was like having, I don't want to say identity crisis, but it was a crisis of what am I even doing? I'm 32 years old at this point. I thought I knew what my life plan was. I didn't trust the journey. And I felt like everything was falling apart. Financially, things were hard. Emotionally, things were hard. Business felt hard because I couldn't show up for myself. So it was my life coach that I hired was my first like huge investment that I made in myself beyond a therapist. And it was like, that changed everything. It dug through the shadow work. And the shadow work is such powerful work to do in one's life because it's usually not what's happening in the moment that feels so big. It's all of the stuff that you've been hiding from or that you've ignored or that you haven't paid attention to really coming up in those moments. And it was having to work through a lot of that stuff and let things go and forgive and trust self. And it was a big, big process of unpacking all that. And still showing up and looking like you're good on paper because heaven forbid clients to know that I'm having a meltdown behind closed doors.
Yeah. 32. That's, I remember 32. I think I got divorced at 32 also. So, virtual pound. All right. We did 32. Yeah.
I think they call it Saturn returns for some people. When it comes to astrology, usually it's when you have a big life shift.
Right. I remember 32. I woke up and I think that was the year I did get divorced and I just woke up on my 32nd birthday and I just cried. Like I'm 32. It sucks. It was a bad time in my life. But I had a lot of eye-opening moments and looking back on it, it's one of those things that just had to happen for me to become me.
It had to.
No matter how hard it was, I'm glad it happened. I hate to say I'm glad it happened, but it happened for a reason. I'm able to say that. It happened for a reason so that I can offer more and give back more later on in my life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That I don't want to go through it again. And I wish that it didn't have to happen that way. But the awakening that came from that and like the humility that came on the other side of that, the knowing of self, like I thought I knew who I was. I had no idea who the heck I was. I was someone who I thought I was, and I really wasn't that person at all. It changed me on not just like a personal level, but like on a cellular level of how I show up. And it's taught me so much more about truly staying grounded and learning how to take better self-responsibility, not taking things so personally from other people. Like it's life lessons that I learned, I feel like at a younger age that I now get the opportunity to go through the rest of my life having, and I didn't have to wait till I was 60 or 70 having this life lesson happen to me then. It was a gift, but it equally sucked.
Right. Yeah. Well, you seem like a very positive, happy person. And you seem like the person that I met in 2019 at that Thrive event, and it was awesome. And you just seem like I could talk to you for hours. Like you're a cool person, and I want to thank you for being here. And I guess on closing here, there's a lot of uneasiness in the world, and a lot of uncertainty in the future. But you're somebody that has always tapped into your own courage and found a belief system that pushes you through. And you also have this, internal GPS that kind of gives you that courage to know that you are going in the direction where you want to go, no matter how long it takes you to get there. You're going to find a way. For those of us that are listening that might be unclear of their path or in a funk or downright scared and fearful right now about what's happening in the world, what kind of advice could you give them to wake up and have an inspired journey?
That's a really good question, because there is a lot of uncertainty in the world. And what I can say, it's like one of my abilities that I've always had, because I probably just don't care a whole lot about what's happening outside of my bubble. And it's not because I always say ignorance is bliss, and it is to a degree. Like I still be educated as much as you need to be with what's happening. And at the same time, focus more on yourself, your journey, what you're needing, how you want to feel most importantly. Like don't fall victim to what's been told to you. And this comes into play of social media, the news, friends, family, clients. Like there's a lot of influence that we get, especially behind the chair as empathic human beings. And my superpower is with that would be to stop listening to all of that noise, like literally create a bubble around self, and to essentially whatever you take on from the salon, leave it at the salon. Whatever you take on from listening to something that might trigger you, like focus on what it is that you're doing within your life. And so I found that a lot of my own happiness, fulfillment, purpose, and the success comes from that has been really getting hyper focused on what I'm actually doing. And it might feel self-centered to some because they're like, well, how do you do that? How do you, like, I'm a really caring, empathetic human being. And I've had to learn like the ability to keep my eyes focused on what I'm working on, like keep your eyes on your own paper is what they would say. So you can continue to move forward and make the small steps in your life and not get distracted by the fear or the fear mongers out there. I'm like, when it comes to the topic of any discussion that happens outside of my own world, like I'm Switzerland. I really don't want to have an opinion because if it makes me feel triggered or upset, I'm going to derail. I'm going to get pulled away from what I'm really focusing on. If I focus on the fulfillment of happiness within my business or within my marriage or within my friendships or even with my own relationship to self, like that's where I find the joy. So like joy comes from within. It doesn't come from outside things. It doesn't come from money. It doesn't come from building a salon. That's stressful. It doesn't come from trying to build a bit like an online course. That's also stressful. Like it's fulfilling, but like, it's like the reward through the process of doing that and the people that I get to impact. Like it's keeping like, just keep in your own bubble. Like I love social media. Again, I try my best not to get too distracted because comparison's real, right? The news is real, but those aren't my thoughts. I have to pay attention to what my thoughts are. And I do utilize a lot of meditation. And I really focus on how I'm feeling every single day. And if I find myself feeling insecure, which that comes up a lot, or frustrated, that comes up a lot too, I kind of tap in and have conversation. What's happening? What's really going on? Why are you feeling this way? What can you offload? What can you stay focused on? What's going to like make this day feel even better? What tasks do I don't have to do? So kind of like your checklist. And it allows me to just really be my own best support system because I don't necessarily need outside influence to make myself feel better. And that's not easy. Like that came through the 7 years of falling apart at 32 to where I am today, which thank God I'm not bringing a kid into the world at that point. I'm doing it now.
Laura, you are a very wise woman. And what you said is creating your own bubble to shut the noise out and basically focus on what you can control. Protect your energy. And I absolutely love that. And that is such wise advice. I think when people ask, how do you do it? How do you stay focused on that? It's practice. You practice and you're committed to the practice. You're committed to practicing over and over and over again until every day is a little less noise and a little less noise and a little less focus on everybody else. And the bubble gets stronger and your shield gets stronger around you. And suddenly it's just like you're deflecting all the BS around you and the noise. And that's what it comes down to. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And I think a lot of people just aren't willing to put the time in to work on themselves and shape their mind.
Yeah.
So I congratulate you on that.
I'm still working on it. It's not every day is a cakewalk, but you know, you gotta.
No, it's not. But you are a force for good and keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate you being here, and please let me know how I can support you.
Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate the time you've made for our conversation as well. You are equally a cool person that we could clearly just jam out and talk all different topics. So thank you. I definitely appreciate you.
Thanks for tuning in to Hair Hero. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps us reach more listeners just like you. And don't forget to screenshot this episode and share it on Instagram, tagging us at Masters of Balayage. We'd love to see your posts and share them. Until next time, remember, be bold, be brave, be you. See you in the next episode.